Distinguished guests on the dais, startups, investors, innovators, technical experts who've come from different parts of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, truly delighted to welcome all of you to India and to this very fascinating city of Hyderabad. Ladies and gentlemen, as we sit here today and as India hosts the G-20, the world is going through several crises. It's going through a crisis of global slowdown. Almost 1/3 of the world, as the IMF chief has said, is suffering from recession. Almost 200 people have gone below the poverty line on account of COVID. 100 million people have lost their jobs. There's a crisis of climate action, climate finance. There's a huge crisis of global debt. 75 countries are suffering from a global debt crisis. And there's a challenge of geopolitics in Europe with the Russia-Ukraine war, which has led to issues of fuel, food, fertilizer, many challenges. But every crisis is an opportunity. And I think in the midst of crisis, the biggest challenge is to do technological disruption and to do innovation. And this is the Startup Engagement Group is India's innovation to the G20 movement. It's the first engagement group which drives technology innovation and the startup movement. And this is born out of India's conviction that the world needs more and more of technology, the world needs more disruption, the world needs young entrepreneur, and to drive the world out of the present recessionary trend, you need a range of young entrepreneurs in a vast range of new areas of growth to be able to accelerate the pace of inclusive, resilient, and sustainable growth. So, ladies and gentlemen, our belief is that the world will not be able to progress without startups. Our belief is that the world requires much more technology to accelerate the pace of growth, and our belief is that you need constant technological disruption, which has to be the heart of growth and progress of humankind. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, our own experience when we started the Startup India movement in 2016 January, which was launched by our Prime Minister Mr. Modi, there were just 456 startups. Today there are close to about 90,000 startups in India, attracting over $350 billion. We have over about 110 unicorns, and our pace of getting unicorns in India is about 3.5 to 4 years compared to about 5.5 years in Silicon Valley. Our belief is that in India, we've used digital technology to leapfrog. When I was an officer in Kerala 2 decades back, opening a bank account for traditional fishermen, my job was to transform the lives of traditional fishermen. We were able to give them outboard motors, we were able to give them new fishing crafts, we were able to give them new fishing nets, but they were prone to drinking. And therefore, it was very important to open their bank accounts and put money into their bank accounts. Opening a bank account then used to take us 8 to 9 months. It was a nightmare doing know your customers. Today in India, we open a bank account in less than a minute using our biometric. So I've seen this transformation from 9 months to 1 minute, and I've seen India doing today. I've not used my bank account, I have not been to a physical bank, I have not used my debit credit card, I have not used my ATM machine for the last 4 years. My mobile is my bank, my mobile is my debit credit card, I do all my transactions from here, and what we've done is that in the last 4 years, we've reached the stage where we do about 12x of what Europe and United States of America do in terms of fast payments. We do over 4x of what China does. This is because we've been able to build digital identity, we've been able to link them to bank accounts, and between 2015 and 2018, 55% of the bank accounts opened across the world were opened in India, and each one of them were linked digitally, and every Indian having a mobile does digital transactions. So everyone in tier 2, tier 3 cities, rural areas, everybody does digital transactions. But the real story of India is that our startups have been able to get into new areas of growth, whether it's learning outcomes, whether it's health outcomes, and as we opened up the space area, the last 6 months has seen a booming of new startups in the space area, where we've seen startups doing manufacturing of engines, of rockets, of satellites, or doing drones, and we've seen a massive amount of disruption. So ladies and gentlemen, what we are going to witness today is an exchange of ideas between startups and innovators and investors from across the world. As startups grow and mature, there will be several challenges. Today there's a challenge of finance. Tomorrow there will be a challenge of corporate governance, which will be very critical, because when young people drive startups with passion and energy, they forget about corporate governance, but that's a key. And the third is an issue of how do we learn from each other, how do we experience and benefit from the experiences of Silicon Valley, of China, of Europe, all these countries, of different models which have existed across the world. There's a big tech model of the USA, there's a GDPR model of the Europe, in India we've created platforms, public platforms on which we've allowed private sector to innovate and constantly disrupt. And India is the only country where Phone Pay competes with Google Pay, where Paytm competes with WhatsApp in the marketplace. Each one of them is competing in the marketplace. So on payment today, you have over about 45 different apps on which you can make your payments. So that is the structure, that the digital public platform has been built across areas where we've allowed private sector to do more and more of innovation. So there are huge learnings from across the world. But the key challenge is that the startups are today solving problems of education, of health, of agriculture productivity. And as we solve these problems of 1.4 billion people of India, we are not solving problems for India alone, but the startups are finding solutions for many of the challenges of the world. They're finding solutions for the next 4 to 5 billion people who are moving from poverty to middle class in the next decade or so. And that is why the story of social transformation, the story of growth, the story of transformation of the world in completely new areas of artificial intelligence, machine learning, web, cloudification, digitalization, space technology, electric battery, mobility, storage, all these areas require huge rounds of disruption, and they will all come from you, and the lessons of all this must get into principles of startup, which must find a way into the main message of the leaders of the world. When the leaders of the world meet in India on 9th and 10th of September, they must be fueled by the dreams and visions of the startup group which is meeting here today. What you decide today, and I think to my mind this is the most important group, what you decide with your passion and energy must shape the world of tomorrow through the vision of the leaders of G-20 on September 9th and 10th when they meet in India. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, sir. We have been blessed with many leaders of our nation who really wanted to speak to all of you, which of course speaks to the importance of the work that you do and all the excitement that's around it. We will now hear from our leaders who represent the people of India. First, we will hear from Mr. Som Prakash, Minister of State for Commerce and Industry. Welcome, sir.
Shri G. Krishna Reddy, Honorable Minister of Tourism and Culture, Shri Amitabh Kanti, G-20 Sherpa, Shri Parmeshwaran Ji, Iyer Ji, CEO Niti Yog, delegates from different states, friends on the dais, and my friends from media. Good morning, namaskar. My greetings and welcome to all the participants of the Startup 20 Inception meeting. It's my pleasure to be here today with all of you at the Inception meeting of Startup 20 and engagement group under G20. The G20, as you all know, is one of the most important economic forums in the world today. And this year, in 2023, India has the presidency of the G20, and in the words of Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Bhai Modi ji, we will make sure this presidency is inclusive, ambitious, decisive, and action-oriented. Startups have emerged as key driving economic growth and job creation, and often catalysts for radical innovation. In today's rapidly changing global environment, startups can quickly add to new market solutions. This has led to the evolution of global startup ecosystem where entrepreneurs